Hello, Michael Fudge here again. I'm glad I'm back from skiing because it's time for our hints, tips, and tricks. It's time again for week 2's homework advice. Okay, for this homework assignment, your job is to create a paint estimator app for big box retailer House Depot. Basically, you will get the size of the room and then figure out how much paint it requires to paint the room. For example, if you have a room with 12-inch walls and 14-inch walls, or 12-foot walls and 14-foot walls, and 8-foot high walls, and you want to put 2 coats of paint on it, that would be 416 square feet twice for each coat, or 832 square feet. But only a can of paint covers 400 square feet. So you're going to need 3 cans of paint to do that. Right? You're going to need 1, 2, and then a little extra because it's 832 square feet. So you're going to not use up a lot of that 3rd can, but you can't buy a small can. You can only buy gallon cans in this example. So that really helps you sort of understand the problem. Now, understanding the problem is one thing. Coding a solution to the problem is another one entirely. And so one great way to find a solution to these problems is to do what's called code by example. That is, you take this example and you code exactly this example. Then you figure out how to extrapolate it back out into a program that will solve any problem. Okay, so let's do that as our first piece of advice for this particular homework assignment is think about coding it by example. So I'm going to just add a cell here just because that way you can see what we're talking about. So it says length of room 2. So I'm going to just code it again by example. Length 2. Okay, width 4. Now this is a horrible program because it's only going to solve this example, but that's fine. Once I know how to solve this example, I can then figure out how to solve a bigger example. Okay. Then the height of the room, it has 10-foot ceilings. 10. And the number of coats is going to be 3. So let's figure out the area to be painted. The area to be painted here is got to be the length of the wall times the height, right? If you think about a room's a big rectangle. So you've got this one wall length and then another wall width, and then they're all 10 feet high. So it's, one wall, 2, plus the other wall, another 2, plus the width, 4, plus another width, 4, and that's all the walls. And then they're all 10 feet high, right? So you have to take all of that and multiply it by 10. And does that come out to be this example, 120 square feet? I don't know. I'm going to let Python do the math for me. So let's print area. Oh, I got a funny looking. It does come out to 120 square feet. So that tells me I'm on the right track there. Now, do I want to use 2? No, I want to use length here. I don't want to use 2. I would want to use length here, right? I want to stick with my variables, right? Because if you hard code in numbers, then it's not going to work when the values change. Right, but again, I'm just trying to figure this out by example. But yes, this should be length. This should say length, and then this should say length, right? But I'll leave that up to you. That's up to you. Now, let's figure out how do we get to 360 square feet? Well, if you know the area is 120 square feet, and you need 3 coats, you need to go over that area 3 times. You're going to need 3 times 120, which is 360, right? So total is going to be the area times 3, right? Because there's 3 coats in this case. Now, I should probably use coats here. Let's print out the total. 360. Okay, so that's good. So now one can of paint covers 400 square feet. Right? So one can of paint covers 400. So one can is going to easily put 3 coats in this very small room. Because one can covers 400 and I only have 360, right? So total gallons of paint required for 3 coats is going to be 1 can, right? So the question becomes, how do you figure out how many cans, right? And that's where it says round up to the nearest whole can of paint, always. So the way that you can round up to the nearest whole can of paint is by using a function called a ceiling function. A ceiling function is a real number, the greatest integer greater than or equal to a given number. So, for example, the ceiling, let me add another cell. The ceiling of 4.1 is 5. The ceiling of 0.1 is 1. And this makes sense because if you need 0.1% of a can of paint, you still need to buy the entire can of paint. So when I divide the total by the coverage of a can of paint, which is 400 square feet, I get a number. So I'm going to use 90% of that can to put 3 coats of paint in this example. So I can't buy 90% of a can of paint. I have to buy the whole can of paint. Therefore, I need to use the ceiling function. So the way you get to the ceiling function in Python is you need to import the math library, and then there's a function called math ceil. And if I put in 0.9, it gives me back, I got to spell it right. It gives me back 1. Just to show you, if I use let's suppose I need 3.5 cans of paint, it's going to tell me you have to buy 4. So this is the trick that you're going to use to always round up to a whole can of paint. So even if you only need 1/100th of a can of paint, you still need to buy a whole can of paint. So that's why you need this math ceil. So what you should do is this should go at the top of your code. And then somewhere in line when you need to calculate what is actually required, right? So this is like, the cans equals total, and then you'd have to say actual cans is going to be the math ceil of my cans. And to show you this, I'm going to print cans and actual. Got to spell actual right, don't I? Yeah. It's actual cans, Mike. There. So I need 9/10 of a can, but I actually got to buy 1 whole can. So let's just play a game. Imagine the total amount is not 360, but 832, like up here, right? So if it was 832, you're going to need 2.08 cans, which gets rounded up to 3 full cans of paint that you need to buy in order to paint that room. So that's math ceil. So after you complete the entire program by example, then you should go back and extrapolate these to inputs. You don't want to always use 2. You want to say int, or it would probably be float, right? Input, enter, length of room. Etc. So that's the approach that you take when you code by example, is you would write the entire program with hard fixed values, then change your inputs accordingly and get your outputs accordingly. In essence, Everything in between the input and the output is going to be variables. There shouldn't be any numbers in here, right? The only number that's fixed here is that a can of paint uses 400 square feet. That's the only thing that is never going to change regardless of how the program works. It's always going to be the same number of paint, number of square footage in a can of paint. Okay? And this concludes another homework advice. I hope you found it useful. Good luck on your homework assignments, and goodbye.